Your history, slime balls. Here's your look at the Neca toys. This is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, Slash. Following up on their first arcade game-based TMNT figures, Neca turns to the second Turtles game from the classic 1990s Turtles in Time video game. All feature special deco that recreates the pixelated look of the video game, and come with individual window boxes with graphics from the original arcade cabinet. Easily, of all the 4 figures that Neca was releasing for the Turtles in Time, the one I was most excited for was Slash here. And I think a lot of people actually have that same shared opinion. Before we get in deep looking at Slash, the first thing we're going to have a look at is how tall the figure actually stands. And don't worry, we're going to do some size comparisons as well. Slash stands impressively at 5.4 inches in height. Centimeter-wise, you're looking at a figure standing 13.7 centimeters tall. And of course, I did promise some size comparisons, so we'll bring in the Donatello that we had a look at, and we'll also bring in Leonardo. I know, we're missing the foot soldier. Here he is. He's right here, right in the back. Kind of keeping guard of everything. But those are the 4 figures that was released in the Turtles in Time Wave 1. You can imagine we're probably going to still be getting another wave of these. After all, we're still missing Michelangelo and Raphael. The Turtles themselves, other than differencing in heads, the head sculpts are obviously going to be different from one another, they appear to be sharing the exact same molds, at least on their arms, their torso, and their legs. Feet are going to be different, the hands are going to be different, and of course the shells are going to be very different from one another. But the main components, the basics of it all, the Turtles are sharing the exact same mold to Slash. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The foot soldier is clearly the more unique mold of the batch. He is taller and towering over the other 3 figures from this first wave. Looking at the figure's accessories, unfortunately he's slashed, sorry I had to do that, of his hover rocket sled. This one is actually a boss that you fight on the ground, so it makes no sense that you would include one, so he doesn't get that, so we can cut that right out of the mix. What he does include, though, is a grenade. And we'll probably look at that one first, because this is likely going to be the first thing that you're going to lose if you're not careful. It's small and made of a more dense plastic, although the clip on the side, the pin of the grenade, I think this is the pin, this is the clip. Grenade experts could certainly weigh in on that, but this is more of a softer plastic, whereas this is more of a denser plastic. It's a bit difficult to actually get into Slash's hand, because his hand is made of what seems to be more of a denser, harder plastic than the other Turtles that we had a look at. As you can see, it's been shaded in such the way that the front is done in more of a lighter kind of gray color, where the back section is all done in a dark gray color. So he does come included with that. I don't see an actual place, I was looking for one, in which the grenade could actually be housed when it's not being held in his hand. I guess just short of it being tucked just along the front section there. I can't see of any other place where you could actually put the grenade when it's not in Slash's hand. The thing I wanted to mention, though, is that the plastic on his fingers is really hard, and it's very difficult to actually fit the grenade in either one of his hands. The sword isn't so much the issue, but the grenade is very small. And like I said, you may even involve heating the hand slightly to open this up, only simply to put the grenade into his hand. Personally, I think that's a lot of work for ultimately something that I'm not going to be displaying with the figure anyways. So we'll just put that down. Don't worry, the pin is still intact. The other accessory, we'll just put the figure down for 1 second, is of course his trademark Jagged Sword. He has this in the level when you do fight him, and it's definitely been recreated nicely here in plastic. The blade itself, as you can see on both sides, sort of a lightning bolt sword, and it's been painted on both sides in this white, chalk-like white. The handle of the hilt is also sort of, well, this handle, the part here right, is also done in that white color, where the hilt is kept only to the basics of the gray. The gray still makes appearances, so you can kind of guess what plastic was used for this, and then they simply just painted the blade on both sides, leaving the middle section still that dark gray plastic, and sort of kept the same advice going for the underside of the sword, which also is only in that all gray plastic. As I said, though, it does fit into his hands. I'm usually choosing this hand over this one because this one is open just a little bit more for business, and you can just pry the hand just enough that you can get the sword handle in place, and then you've got Slash with his sword in his hand. Again, you could probably do the exact same thing and pull that off on this side, but the grip is just a little bit more tighter and closed. So you may have to just kind of fight a little bit more, get the sword in that side. But either way, though, that's a really neat display way of displaying Slash. Would definitely be displaying him with the sword. After all, again, he has that in the game. So we'll just go ahead and take that off and put that to the side. I wanted to bring in back one of the turtle toys. There is Leonardo, just so you can see side to side. If you look at it, misleadingly for a second, you might think that Slash has bigger arms, but the arms themselves are the same size. What's throwing it off is the little panel pieces here that make up the side of his shoulder armor. That really is the thing that's throwing you off your perception. In fact, it is actually the exact same arms. The front torso, including the front shell, is also the exact same. The legs are the same, with only the real differences between the figures being really in Slash's feet, which were likely just retooled. It looks like they're almost identical toes, while this one has the wrinkles on the front, but the back of the feet look like they're similar, that they probably have just retooled a new mold for the feet themselves to sport, of course, these really long, sharp, fugly-looking toenails. The hands are also quite different from one another. You can see that they've got the fingernails on Slash, whereas regular Leo doesn't have that. Obviously, the big difference, too, if you flip the figure around, the shells couldn't be any bit more different from one another, where the basics of it all might have been the same shell, but then they, of course, added all the additional spikes and protrusions sticking out from the shell. And then, of course, the biggest one is the heads. The heads couldn't be any bit more different from one another. Slash has a more exaggerated expression to more of the subdued Leo here on the left. But as you can see, other than that, I mean, height-wise, they're the exact same sized figure. Proportionately, they're the same figure, other than for the fact, of course, Slash just has a few extra things going on with him. So getting a look at his face, again, I really love the expression that they gave him. Quite a crazy-looking expression for Slash. Very wide in the eyes, but no pupils found here on Slash. He's just completely kept to white pupils, white eyeballs. Now, this one has some sentimental value to me. This one happens to be Slash. Still remember one of the earliest times of picking up a Turtles toy. I saved up money. I kid you not. I think whether it was through allowance or I was doing the paper route at the time, saved up the money, and I vividly remember going to Wolco here in Canada, and I picked up Slash. Slash, of course, was a little bit different in the original Playmates toy line, and of course a lot of the colors that Neca was able to afford this particular figure really wasn't on the original figure. I still wish I had those turtle toys. I gave them up so many years ago. But so Slash, for me, has, again, some real sentimental value to me. And the idea that we are getting not only Slash, but we're getting Slash from one of my all-time favorite Turtle games, Turtles in Time, is just a dream come true. You can see his bandana is more of a darker, it's not quite even black, it's not even quite purple, it's almost a very dark bluish black. It really works quite well for this figure. Of course, you have the two-tone effect with the more blockier, pixelated colors, more in the greens and the darker greens. Very similar, actually, to the same colorings that the Turtles had. Let me just bring those two in once again. And it does seem like they're sharing the exact same color palette. Of course, Slash doesn't have the same colors as the Turtles. The Turtles are more the lime green color, where Slash is kind of more like a bluish green. Of course, he's got the little sections there on his shoulders. I don't even know what purpose they serve. It would have been just something I'm sure he crafted together to give himself some much-needed armor. And speaking of armor, of course, Slash, like his namesake says, he actually has these little long blades, almost similar to what you would expect from the Shredder, sticking out from his gloves. Additional colors that we can kind of look at is a very intricate looking belt. It almost serves as a bit of a utility belt, but as you can see, it's got some skull and crossbones, some shurikens, and his trademark S located on the front. This has obviously been painted over the gray plastic, so it really does pop and stand out. As well, additionally to standing out, literally and quite figuratively, I mean, you do have these blades, these spikes that stick out from Slash's shell here, and I like that they're only kept to just basic white. We didn't feel the need to add any additional coloring to it. They just kept it a real simple basic white. You have the two-tone effect of the shell, of course, very pixelated with the two tones colorings, more of a tan color and almost the coloring of a nice hot mustard. Delicious hot mustard. Most of the coloring of Slash is really where you get dark coloring on the back. The turtles were very similar like this as well. The front, you only get mild amounts of it. You only really more see it from when you look at the side of it. Slash seems to almost be a little bit more subtle. I guess it's because the coloring of him is already kind of that bluish green anyways, so it was a darker color to start off with, that the pixelated color doesn't stand out as much as it did on the actual turtles. Really got some really nice, interesting colors on this guy. He's really, by far, one of my favorites. From the 4 figures that we've had a look at, Slash stands out, I feel, from the crowd. For this guy's articulation, his head rotates all the way around. His neck also seems about the same. Let me just bring in Leo again, just so we can have a look at it. Other than just being a little bit more wrinkled, I would say it's probably about the same thickness of neck as the other turtles that Neca produced for this first wave. So the head does rotate all the way around. It's got a ball joint. You can angle the head back and forth, and you can hinge it up and down. But then he's got a secondary ball joint. I know we've gone this road before, but the neck is just a little bit more stiffer. I can't seem to move it as easy as I could move the other turtles. But the head, like I said, does rotate quite freely. It doesn't seem obstructed, as you can see when you move the head back and forth. It doesn't clip against those spikes, which is good. The shoulders, on the other hand, do hinge out. Now I find the arms on Slash here, for the about half hour to an hour or so that I've been playing with this figure, I still find like the arms are a bit on the tight side. I can't really move them out too much. Again, I would rather that than really loose joints. So Slash, I guess, to his credit, is a little bit more stiffer in the shoulders. I think you can only really bring them about 45-degree angle anyways. You can't seem to bring them any more higher than that. Even the fact that this isn't really in the way anyways, it's definitely the sculpt right here that's, I think, impeding the arms from actually coming out any bit further than that anyways. The bicep swivels, Slash does have a single hinge on the elbow. It's basically all the same mechanics as the other turtle figures, and then the hands rotate all the way around and also hinge back and forth. You'll also notice too that this particular figure didn't come with interchangeable hands. They've just defaulted him with gripping hands, and that's fine as well. I'm not likely inclined to... This particular turtles, actually none of them really had closed fist hands. And I guess Neca just realized you're probably going to be putting accessories into their hands anyways. Why even include them? It's the same kind of way works with Slash as the other turtles. You can see how the top torso right there has a cut. See that right across there? That allows a mid-waist or waist swivel, I suppose, back and forth. And as for the legs, you can split the legs out. Once again, a full split's going, a little tighter on this side than on this side. Strange that it always seems this side that's a little tighter than the other side. The legs go forward and back, though, nonetheless. He has a swivel on the top cut of the thigh. He has a double hinge on the knee, which, again, is just really tight on this particular figure. I'm not complaining the fact that this guy has tight joints. Again, it seems only on this side that I seem to have that issue. On the other side is perfectly fine. It's moving, no issues whatsoever. But he does have a double hinge nonetheless, double hinge on the knee. And then for his feet rotate all the way around. They hinge up and down, and Slash. Keep thinking that I'm thinking about the guitarist from Guns N' Roses. No, that's Slash still, but it's not quite this Slash. Overall, just a neat looking figure. I don't really have anything negative, I would say, necessarily about this figure. He has that two-tone effect, which obviously is the carry-on calling card for the Turtles in Time figures. All of them have that pixelated color. Whereas I think the Turtles, and I'm just going to bring Slash over for one more time for one last comparison, where I feel like the Turtles, Leo and Donatello, of course, I feel like their colors are more the starker contrast. Because you got the colors of the lime green, it's all the more apparent that you see the darker colors that Neca also painted the figures. With Slash being already a dark colored figure, I don't see it as well, or I don't see it as much as I did with the Turtles when we had a look at them before. You know, the irony of looking at a figure like Slash and then looking at the packaging is that Neca actually produced the packaging with artwork pulled from the original arcade cabinet. And yet, when you really think about it, Slash was never really part of the original arcade version of Turtles in Time. He was only a changed boss when he came ported over to the SNES. The level for Slash was originally designated for Cement Man. And so Neca actually gave us an SNES version character boss, even though the packaging is for the arcade. I just kind of found that interesting. Just FYI though, even though I do think Slash is a notable character that I would want to add to my collection, don't overrule Neca Toys the possibility of giving us arcade versions of those bosses as well. Personally, I'm a big fan of Clayface, so the idea of someone looking like Cement Man being made into a figure, I think there's possibilities still in that. You could definitely incorporate some additional articulation points in it, so it wasn't simply just a blob of plastic. Don't rule out Cement Man. Just FYI, just don't rule out Cement Man. I think there could be potential in both SNES version bosses and regular arcade bosses, just in case it's something that they want to expand on down the road. Did you manage to pick up Slash for yourself? I mean, personally for me, I love Slash because I grew up with Slash. He was one of the first figures that I actually picked up at Woolco back in the 80s. Not only with that statement have I dated myself, but I've also told you guys that I'm Canadian, which you probably already know already. I love Slash as that original game, or that original character and figure, so there's sort of nostalgia that goes along with this figure, this upgraded look, a more articulated version of Slash that obviously the original Slash never could possess. The other thing I really like about this figure is that he stands out literally, and in the sense that if you look at his paint, he doesn't have the more stark contrast of that pixelated coloring. Yes, he still has it in his arms, his legs, and his head, but because his colors, the colors of his skin is a little bit darker, I think it works a little bit better than the actual individual turtles. So if you were turned off with the turtles because you didn't like the color scheme on them so much, I think you can still pick up a Slash and put him along with your other cartoon turtles until we eventually get ourselves a cartoon version of Slash, which I think Neca has also hinted at as well. Just an FYI again, Neca Toys, Cement Man, make it happen. Have you picked up this figure for yourself? I will always like reading your comments down below. What do you guys think of the Turtles in Time Slash? Or based on this review, and this review alone. I'd also like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at Neca Toys who were nice enough to send this sample my way. Again, if you guys are interested in picking this one up for yourself, you should be able to now find it at local Target stores. If you don't have a Target, unfortunately, in your area, like Canada, you may have to pick this one up online. Stay tuned though. I mean, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that bell notification. And like I said, make sure you stay tuned because there's going to be a whole lot of videos coming your way. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.